Good evening and welcome to the channel. What you are about to hear in the next few minutes is not from a movie. This is not fiction. This is not a thriller series on Netflix. This is happening right now today on March 2nd, 2026, as you are watching this video. The Middle East is on fire. Missiles are in the air. Cities that were full of tourists and business travelers just 1 week ago are now under attack. Sirens are blaring in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Doha, Tel Aviv, and Bahrain. Families are sheltering in basements, airports are shut, and the President of the United States is sitting in the White House telling the entire world that what you are seeing right now is not even the worst of it. The big wave, he says, is still coming. Let that sink in for a moment. The most powerful military in the world has already launched a massive strike operation against Iran. Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the man who ruled Iran with an iron fist for 36 years, is dead. Iran's top military commanders are dead. Hundreds of people have already been killed. And yet Donald Trump is standing in front of cameras and microphones warning the world that the biggest and most powerful phase of this war has not even begun yet. If that does not make you stop everything you are doing and pay attention, I do not know what will. This is day 3 of the most significant military conflict the Middle East has seen in modern history. And in the past 24 hours alone, the situation has escalated in ways that even the most experienced military analysts were not fully prepared for. So let us go through everything that is happening right now, piece by piece, city by city, front by front, because the full picture of what is unfolding is far more alarming than any single headline can capture. Let us start from the very beginning of this crisis, because to understand where we are today, you need to understand how we got here. For months, tensions between the United States, Israel, and Iran had been building to a breaking point. The nationwide protests that erupted inside Iran in late December 2025 shook the Islamic Republic to its core. Over 7,000 confirmed deaths, protests in more than 100 cities, students, workers, women, elderly people, all of them pouring into the streets, demanding the end of a system that had failed them economically, politically, and socially for nearly 5 decades. The Iranian rial had collapsed. Inflation was destroying families. And the regime's response was not reform. It was massacre. The international community watched in horror as the Islamic Republic ordered live fire on its own citizens. The European Union listed Iran's Revolutionary Guard as a terrorist organization. Trump warned Iran repeatedly that there would be consequences. And behind the scenes, the United States and Israel were making plans that went far beyond sanctions and diplomatic pressure. On February 28, 2026, those plans became reality. In the early hours of that morning, the United States and Israel launched a coordinated military strike operation against Iran. The scale of the strikes was enormous. Tomahawk land attack missiles were used to suppress Iranian air defenses. Israeli and American aircraft struck military installations, missile facilities, command centers, and leadership compounds across the country. Explosions were reported in Tehran, Isfahan, Qom, Karaj, Kermanshah, Loristan, and Tabriz, the headquarters of the Iraqi Iran-backed Kataib Hezbollah paramilitary group near Baghdad, were also struck. In a single night, the United States and Israel hit Iran harder than it had been hit at any point in its modern history. And then came the news that changed everything. Early on March 1st, Iranian state media confirmed what the world had been waiting to hear. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei was dead. The man who had been the absolute ruler of the Islamic Republic since 1989, the man who had ordered the massacre of protesters, the man who had built Iran's nuclear program and its network of proxy militias across the region, was gone. Iran declared 40 days of national mourning. But inside Iran, a very different reaction was taking place. Videos began circulating online showing Iranians in cities across the country openly celebrating. In Karaj, Qazvin, Shiraz, Kermanshah, Isfahan, and Sanandaj, people were out in public expressing joy at the news of Khamenei's death. In southern Iran, a monument dedicated to the Islamic Republic's founder Ayatollah Khomeini was physically torn down and destroyed by a crowd. The lion and sun flag, the pre-revolutionary Iranian flag that the Islamic Republic had banned and erased from public life for 46 years, began appearing in city streets across Iran and in Iranian diaspora communities worldwide. For millions of Iranians, this was not a moment of mourning. It was a moment of relief, a moment of possibility. But here is where the story takes a turn that nobody should ignore, because while some Iranians were celebrating, the Iranian military was not standing still, not for a single hour. Within hours of Khamenei's death being confirmed, Iran launched one of the most widespread and ambitious missile and drone counterattack operations in modern military history. And when I say widespread, I want you to understand exactly what that means. Iran did not just target Israel. Iran fired at the United States military bases spread across the entire Persian Gulf region. They targeted the UAE. They targeted Qatar. They targeted Kuwait. They targeted Bahrain. They targeted Jordan. They targeted Saudi Arabia. In one coordinated military action, Iran essentially declared war on every country in the region that it considered an enemy or a host of American military power. In a single night, Iran attempted to turn the entire Middle East into a battlefield on its own terms. Let us talk specifically about what happened in the United Arab Emirates, because the scale of the Iranian attack on the Emirates has genuinely shocked military analysts, defense experts, and governments around the world. The UAE Ministry of Defense officially confirmed that its Air Force and integrated air defense systems intercepted 165 ballistic missiles, 2 cruise missiles, and 541 Iranian drones since the beginning of the Iranian counterattack operation. Stop and think about those numbers for a moment. 541 drones, 165 ballistic missiles, all of them aimed at one of the most economically important and symbolically significant countries in the entire region. Among the specific targets that Iran aimed for were Dubai's iconic Burj Al Arab Hotel, one of the most recognized buildings on the planet, the Fairmont Hotel on the Palm, Jebel Ali Port, which is one of the busiest and most strategically important shipping hubs in the entire world, Abu Dhabi's Etihad Towers, and both the international airports in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. These are not military installations. These are the symbols of Gulf prosperity, global connectivity, and modern civilization. Iran was not just trying to cause physical damage. Iran was sending a message to the entire world. If the United States and Israel bring war to our door, we will bring it to yours, and we will make the entire region feel the consequences. Loud explosions were heard across Dubai and Abu Dhabi for a third consecutive day on March 2nd. People in one of the world's most visited, most cosmopolitan, most prosperous cities are sheltering indoors. The airports that normally handle hundreds of thousands of passengers every single day are operating under emergency conditions. Airlines have canceled over 1,500 flights in a single day alone, representing more than 41% of all scheduled arrivals across the Middle East. Ben Gurion Airport in Israel remains completely shut to all traffic. Hundreds of thousands of international passengers are stranded. The regional aviation system, which connects Europe to Asia, which handles massive volumes of global commerce, has essentially come to a standstill. Now, let us talk about what President Trump said on the morning of March 2nd, because his words on this day carry more weight than perhaps any presidential statement in recent memory. In a live phone interview with CNN anchor Jake Tapper, Trump was characteristically direct. He said that the United States military is performing incredibly and that the operation is going very well. He said America has the greatest military in the world and that they are using it. But then he said the words that every government, every military analyst, and every ordinary citizen around the world needed to hear. He said the big wave is yet to come. Let those words land properly. The United States has already launched a massive military operation that killed the Supreme Leader of Iran, destroyed significant portions of Iran's military infrastructure, and triggered one of the largest missile counterattack operations in modern history. And Trump is saying that was not the big wave, that the big wave has not even arrived yet. He also told CNN that the operation is actually ahead of the 4-week schedule he had originally outlined. Ahead of schedule, which means the pace of American military action is going to accelerate, not slow down. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth appeared at the Pentagon on the morning of March the 2nd alongside Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff General Dan Kane. Hegseth confirmed that the war's timeline could shift either shorter or longer than the 4-week estimate, depending on how conditions evolve. He also made a statement that deserves very careful attention. He called on Iranians directly to take advantage of this moment as an opportunity for regime change. And then in almost the same breath, he said this war is not about overthrowing the Iranian government. Those two statements directly contradict each other. And that contradiction tells you something extremely important about the nature of this operation. The United States is pursuing multiple objectives simultaneously, and the people running this war have not yet publicly committed to a single unified endgame. That ambiguity is dangerous. And it will have consequences. The human cost of this conflict is already devastating and growing by the hour. 4 American service members have been confirmed killed in action as of the Monday morning Pentagon briefing on March 2nd. 5 more have been seriously wounded. Trump acknowledged publicly in his CNN interview that there will likely be more American casualties before this operation concludes. On the Iranian side, the Iranian Red Crescent has confirmed over 550 people killed in the joint U.S.-Israeli strikes. The actual death toll is almost certainly higher given the scale of the operations and the difficulty of independent verification inside a country that is now effectively at war. On the Israeli front, the situation has escalated in parallel and is becoming increasingly dangerous. Iran launched a large-scale retaliatory missile strike that directly hit residential buildings in Beit Shemesh, a city located approximately 19 miles west of Jerusalem. At least 6 civilians were killed in that attack. 23 others were taken to hospitals, including 2 in serious condition and 3 in moderate condition. Israel's emergency response system confirmed multiple impact sites across the city, and Israel's response was immediate and overwhelming because Hezbollah in Lebanon has now officially entered this conflict. The Iran-backed militant group, which had already been significantly weakened by Israeli operations over the past 2 years, announced that in retaliation for the killing of Supreme Leader Khamenei, it launched strikes against an Israeli missile defense site. Israel responded by launching a series of strategic airstrikes on Beirut and the Bekaa Valley in Lebanon. Additional strikes hit southern Lebanon. Lebanon's health ministry confirmed at least 31 people killed and 149 wounded in Israeli strikes. Motorists were seen fleeing their villages in southern Lebanon on Monday as the Israeli military warned of further operations. The conflict has now officially and formally expanded to a second active front. And there are fears that other regional actors could be drawn in as the days progress. Let us now talk about something that is not getting enough coverage in the mainstream media, but which could ultimately be more consequential than any single military strike. What is happening to the global economy as a result of this war? Because the economic shockwaves from this conflict are already being felt by ordinary people in countries that have nothing to do with this fight. U.S. crude oil prices surged 12% in a single trading day following the strikes on Iran. Brent crude, the international benchmark that determines oil prices for most of the world, jumped 14%. To put that in context, oil prices had already risen 17% this year, even before the weekend strikes, driven by Trump's escalating rhetoric against Iran. Now, with actual war underway and the Strait of Hormuz, through which roughly 20% of the world's oil passes, potentially at risk, oil analysts are warning of sustained and severe price increases that will ripple through every economy on the planet. Gas prices in the United States are already rising. The average price for a gallon of regular gasoline was just under $3 on Monday morning, according to 8AA. That is already up 6 cents from just 1 week ago. Independent oil analyst Tom Closa warned that retail gas prices could rise by 5 to 10 cents per day for the foreseeable future. Some wholesale gasoline suppliers were already raising their prices by 25 cents per gallon overnight. The pain at the pump is coming, and it is coming fast. Global financial markets are reacting with fear. The Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped 543 points on Monday morning. The S&P 500 lost 1.1% of its value. The Nasdaq Composite Futures declined 1.6%. These are not small movements. These are significant market reactions driven by genuine uncertainty about how long this conflict will last, how wide it will spread, and what it will do to global energy supplies and trade routes. When markets react this way, it affects pension funds, retirement accounts, business investments, and the financial security of ordinary people who have no connection whatsoever to the politics of the Middle East. Now let us address the political dimension inside the United States, because this war is not happening in a vacuum domestically either. The House and Senate are both preparing to vote on war powers resolutions this week that would block Trump from continuing military operations against Iran without congressional authorization. However, as legal analysts have noted, these votes will be largely symbolic even if they pass, because they are extremely unlikely to attract the two-thirds majority needed to override a presidential veto. Trump will almost certainly veto any such resolution, and the war will continue regardless. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries told CNN that the Trump administration has failed to provide any justification for its strikes on Iran. European allies have been urging diplomacy and calling for Iran to seek a negotiated solution. But Senator Lindsey Graham launched a direct and pointed attack on America's European partners, accusing them of being pathetically weak and of losing their sense of identity. The political divisions inside the United States and between the U.S. and its traditional European allies are real, and they are widening by the day. And then there is the question of what happens inside Iran itself. Because beyond the missiles, beyond the strikes, beyond the geopolitical calculations, there are 90 million Iranian people living through something that no population should ever have to experience. Their supreme leader has been killed. Their military is under sustained attack. Their economy, which was already in free fall before this war began, is now in catastrophic condition. Their airports are shut. Their communications are restricted. And the future of their country is being decided not in Tehran, but in Washington and Tel Aviv. Reza Pahlavi has stepped forward in this moment. He has urged Iranians inside the country to prepare to resume the protests that were suppressed earlier this year. He has called on Iranian military and security forces to side with the people rather than the remaining leadership of the regime. He has described the American strikes as a humanitarian intervention. And he has specifically urged Trump to take every possible step to avoid civilian casualties. Whether Reza Pahlavi will ultimately play a role in whatever comes next in Iran remains to be seen. But his voice is louder in this moment than it has been at any point in the past 46 years. The questions that the entire world is now asking are the same questions that have no easy answers. Where does this end? What does victory actually look like for the United States and Israel? If the goal is regime change in Tehran, who forms the next Iranian government, and how do you prevent a power vacuum from creating chaos across a country of 90 million people? If the goal is nuclear disarmament, how do you verify and enforce that in the middle of an active war? If the goal is simply to destroy Iran's military capacity, what happens to the regional balance of power once that is done? These are not rhetorical questions. These are the questions that will determine the shape of the Middle East for the next generation. What is clear as of today, March 2nd, 2026, is that this war is real. It is expanding, and it is far from over. The missiles are still flying. The explosions are still happening. The casualties are still mounting. And the President of the United States is telling us that the worst is yet to come. Stay with us, because we will be here covering every single development as this historic and dangerous moment continues to unfold. Make sure you are subscribed and have your notifications turned on so you never miss an update. Now we want to hear from you directly. A. Do you believe Trump's 4-week timeline for ending this war is realistic? Or do you think this conflict is going to drag on far longer and become far more complicated than anyone in Washington is currently admitting? B. Do you think Iran's decision to target civilian infrastructure in Dubai and Abu Dhabi will permanently damage the Gulf region's reputation as a safe and stable hub for global business and investment? C. And most importantly, do you believe the United States actually has a clear, credible, and realistic plan for what happens inside Iran after this war ends? Or is Washington going in without a real exit strategy the same way it did in Iraq in 2003? Drop your answer below. We read every single comment, and your perspective on this matters.